Hey, what's up, everybody? Of course, welcome to another episode of the Victorious Ones podcast, the place where gaming meets comics, meets sports, meets movies, as well as inspiration. Of course, I'm your host, King Von Jr., of course, back from Vegas, you know what I mean? So of course, of course, you can follow me on social media on Twitter /X at 301 King Von Jr. You can also follow the show's Twitter page at Victory Pod 1. You can also follow me on Instagram at Mr. King Von Jr. You can also follow the show's Instagram page at Victorious Ones Podcast. I'm also the social media producer for the unpopular wrestling show Perfect Plex Talk Radio. Hosted by a friend of the program, Mike Knotts. And so, I just want to say that I am back from Vegas. Had a great time. A fantastic time. First time ever been out there. And so this is what this show is going to be all about tonight. Hold on. I'll be right back. Excuse me for that. Clearly I'm getting a better hang of this. As far as turn my camera off, if you will. But yeah, like I said, tonight's episode is definitely going to be dedicated exclusively to good old Las Vegas. My first time ever going out there. I know that I'm definitely going to be going back. Vegas owes me absolutely nothing. By the way, I got this tag, really cool shirt. I'm still unpacking. So bear with me for a moment. There you go. Live on air. To the tag off. But yeah, this is a really cool shirt that I got from the WWE Superstore. The WrestleMania 41. I was there. It's one of those I was there shirts. I had to get one. It says I was there on the back, and so it's got the card. You know what I mean? So a pretty nice card. I know it feels like it's a tale of two WrestleManias, if you will. Of course, night 1, night 2, and not only that, but also as far as the review of WrestleMania from some people. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's like, where do I begin? One, the attractions themselves were absolutely outstanding. You know what I mean? And so I got a chance to visit the Sphere in Las Vegas. I saw the Ferris wheel. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I thought it was cool. Plenty of pictures I have on my social media. You know what I mean? So I got a chance to to see see like the downtown parts of Vegas, especially when it comes to the Las Vegas skyline, like when it comes to the Flamingo Casino and all, Caesar's Palace, all that type of stuff is, it's absolutely mind-boggling. It's like the moment I stepped onto that ground. Excuse me. As far as like on the Caesar's Palace side of Vegas, all of a sudden I'm going up the escalator, and I was like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing right now. Like, I made it. I feel like I reached the mountain. Even though I didn't get a chance to visit the Grand Canyon yet, but I will say that like a lot of the attractions I have got a chance to visit, and so like I say, especially when we came to Caesar's Palace, seeing that, and of course that was that was the home of WrestleMania 9, and so to be there up close and personal, I just thought to myself, as soon as I walked in, actually, like for one, like I said, so that sign said Caesar's Palace. Like, wait a minute, this is it, And so as soon as I got up to the top, I'm walking around, and there's a guy that sees me. He says, "Welcome to Las Vegas." I'm like, "Thank you very much." I was definitely welcome, and so of course they had, like I said, as far as that, they had they also had the observatory, whatever. There's free to see like the plants and stuff. He had Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen right at the top, and then then as soon as you go inside, finally make your way into Caesar's Palace. As soon as I walk in, like I said, it felt like my head was spinning. It's like, and for those that know about Pokemon, there's a Pokemon called Poliwhirl or Poliwrath, and like right in the center has this giant swirl. For those that know what I'm talking about, my eyes felt like that as soon as I walked in, and I'm looking around. I feel like my eyes were like spinning, like spirals or something. It was, like I said, it was remarkable. I was blown away. As soon as so the statue, I said, "You have arrived. This is Caesar's Palace." I'm like, automatically, I was like, "Yeah, this is where WrestleMania 9 was." I was like, "Man, that all right then." And of course, I'm not a gambler myself, as we all know, but I will say that that the lights were a thing of beauty, something to behold. So inside of Caesar's Palace, you have like I said, of course, the one is Caesar's Palace. You have the food court, and so some like they have a pizzeria. They have quesadillas. They have Starbucks. They have not only that, but I also got a chance to taste Bobby Flay's burgers, really good. You know what I mean? Also got a red velvet cake as well. Great. You know what I mean? And little did I know that guys like Scott Steiner walk across the casino. I was like, man, they had a sports book bar as well, where as far as that. And on the other end of Caesar's Palace, they have the forum shops. And so going down there, you have super high end price stores. So when you go to Vegas, obviously you definitely have to be safe, have to have saved up, stacked up, well ahead of time, right? Because like I said, they have Tiffany and Company, Montclair, Balenciaga, Pandora, whichever one. I know they have obviously a Levi's store, Apple store, a Nike store on the further end, on the side, like right next to the Cheesecake Factory. They have a Nike store. They also have Culture Kings. Of course that's very popular on Instagram. But the Culture King store is actually in Vegas, and so because it was WrestleMania weekend, they definitely had a lot of WWE merchandise, exclusive merchandise in there, and so I got a chance to see that stuff up close and personal. Pretty nice. I had to kind of tighten my belt up a little bit, as far as my wallet is concerned, if you will. You know what I mean? But in the Nike store, they have some real nice shoes. Of course, plenty of Jordans. They even had they even had a section, for a section for Kobe merchandise. You had a purple, had Kobe hoodies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, so now I know what this is. Cool. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right. This is where it's at. They even have an Atlantis show as well. As a matter of fact, that right in front of that little circle where the Cheesecake Factory is. The Cheesecake Factory Nike store is like right outside in front of it. And I like how the lights change colors. It looks like the sky changing colors or something. And so with the way it looked, I couldn't tell if I was in Vegas or in Paris or Italy. Because I was thinking to myself, man, I feel like I need to have a passport around here or something. And so as far as that, like I said, it was absolutely mind blowing. You know what I mean? They'll, like I said, they'll also have another shoe store in there that it's kind of like Flight Club. In the sense, they have like on the left they have a whole row for like Jordans and Dunks and stuff like that, but all the shoes are wrapped up. You know what I mean? And so for those that that they're familiar with Complex, that's what it reminded me of. I even saw I even saw some Kobe's in there too. You know what I mean? I was like. Like I said, I was thoroughly impressed. And so I know that that's definitely like one of the key places I will definitely visit again next time, somewhere down the line I go back to Vegas. And I definitely want to definitely want to get more of like the Circa area, as far as that. And what I like about it is that they have a theme for different cities and stuff like that. So there's a street, there's an area in Vegas called New York, which is dedicated to New York. They even have a Statue of Liberty. There's another part of Vegas that's for Paris. That's why when you go there you see the Eiffel Tower. And so as far as that, they have a Hard Rock Cafe. I haven't got a chance. I didn't have time to go there. But I asked somebody who's been to Vegas multiple times and told me about it in future, for future reference, right? And so of course you have the T-Mobile Arena, which is where NXT took place. I got a chance to see like a UNLV, like at least like on the way to the airport. I got a chance to see the UNLV Arena. And so, and of course, I'm going to go into WrestleMania pretty soon, right? That's the main thing I'm going to talk about, which took place at Allegiant Stadium, home of the now Las Vegas Raiders. And and the thing is, I never went to the Coliseum, when they were in Oakland, but this Allegiant Stadium, oh, this is much needed. This is the best that they could do. I mean, because you want to talk about a place as an attraction for for different things. Of course, Allegiant Stadium is where SummerSlam took place. SummerSlam 2021, 2021, when Roman beat Cena. And so, so as far as that, of course, because of how popular that was, they were like, what, it's time for us to have an encore. So we got to have this on our list, for future WrestleMania cities. And it was definitely the right call, And so I must say that, like I said, that when it comes to stadiums, I was thoroughly impressed. I've visited multiple stadiums. Of course, like I said, I'm going to count Northwest Stadium around here. But outside of that, like I said, I visited. Like I said, not just football stadiums, but baseball stadiums as well. Like I said, for one, I visited Cowboys Stadium, AT&T, beautiful, amazing, state of the art. They're the pioneers when it comes to modern stadiums, right? So like I said, I visited Cowboys Stadium for for WrestleMania 32. I visited SoFi Stadium, I was there for WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles, in Inglewood. You know what I mean? Of course, home of the Rams. Of course, I've been to obviously, not only that, but I also went to Bank of America Stadium, for a Cowboys game against the Panthers. I've been to Lincoln Financial Field last year for WrestleMania 40, and of course, now I've been to Allegiant Stadium for WrestleMania 41, and so, of course. Lincoln Financial is home of the Eagles, which is a rival team of mine. You know what I mean? So, but as far as that, out of those stadiums, I would say that I probably put Allegiant Stadium top 3 for real. And you know what I mean. So as far as that's concerned, is definitely in that conversation. And my experience at Allegiant Stadium, just as far as being in attendance, it felt like it kind of drew parallels to my first WrestleMania, Dallas 1, as I like to call it. In the sense that I was fortunate to have to be in the standing room section, which wasn't bad. As a matter of fact, it's like open standing room. That's that's the level that's one of the levels where they have the concessions. But not only that, but there was giant Raiders pillar or whatever, right in the middle of it. But in the standing room section, that's also where you get to see we even get to see some of the wrestlers walk past. I know on Saturday, Omos And so when I saw him, I yelled out, "Omos!" And I kid you not, this dude looked right at me and saluted. You know what I mean? So it's just like, even though I didn't have time to get a picture, but it is what it is. At least I was acknowledged, by the Nigerian, giant. I thought that was pretty cool. Who else? The Miz walked past that section as well on night one. It was I know it was definitely like right during the main event, right during the triple threat. Triple threat between Reigns, Rollins, and Punk. I'm going to get into that in a minute as well. And so, like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm jumping ahead of myself, but yeah, but yeah, like I said, as far as that, like I said, I see Omos, I see the Miz, but of course, Miz, was just looking straight ahead because he's doing the coverage like after the show. And not only that, but the next day, B-Fab had walked past as well. So, like I say, just some of the, some of the experiences. And like I said, I don't want to sound like just jumping to conclusions. But like I said, more on that later. But yeah, like I said, as far as as far as the attractions. Vegas, is never short on attractions, never short on a spectacle. You know what I mean? So, and not only that, but also, I remember speaking of spectacles, I also got a chance to see the Peacock WrestleMania 9 special becoming a spectacle. So at first, I was kind of like on the fence about watching that because I did not want to relive that infamous. Excuse me. I did not want to relive that infamous WrestleMania 9 moment where Brett lost to Yoko and Hogan stole the title from Yokozuna, all the type of stuff. So it's like, that's why that WrestleMania lost so many points. That and that awful Undertaker Giant Gonzalez match, which is something I know that Taker would rather live down to this day. You know what I mean? Shawn Michaels being the WrestleMania Miracle Man himself could not pull out a miracle with that Tatanka match. I think the biggest highlight, I think the best match, that day for me was the Steiner Brothers versus the Head Shrinkers. Of course, I'm talking about WrestleMania 9, but it's just like the story that they told in terms of the documentary, as far as they want to make it even bigger and more grand, than it ever was before. That's why they took a big step in going to Las Vegas. And so, of course, it was big on making sure that they sell a lot of tickets. But even though they were moving in the direction of the future, they've still found a way to it was still kind of like leaning on the past. In this case, the past being Hogan. And so, I think that was a big drawback in terms of WrestleMania 9 because you had this new generation, this next generation of stars that were carrying the company out of the era into the next, right? Like I said, new brand of stars that they're carrying the company into into another generation. Of course, led by Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker, right? So it was like three figureheads. But the thing about nostalgia. Nostalgia is a very powerful drug, and so because WWF was blinded by nostalgia, and they were desperate on making ticket sales. That's when they when they went back to the old drawing board and brought Hogan back again. Parading him like it was 1984 again. So I think that was a big drawback for WrestleMania 9. Like I said, if you go back and watch it on Peacock, like I said, it goes into a whole lot of details. I mean, it was like I said, at least I said it's a lot, but it was definitely better than I thought it would be. I didn't really crash out like I thought I was, even though Hogan is a clown. But you know what I mean. But as far as that, and also the funny thing is that of course they did mention Hogan's black eye, right? And so I know Undertaker made a joke when he saw Hogan's black eye. And he said, it looks like So when Undertaker saw Hogan's black eye, he said, "Well, he said, it looks like brother should have, should have been bobbing and leaving." I was like, "Oh man!" And so because the whole time the story was about, story was about, about Hogan, just dropping the weight or getting hit with a parasailing. I know Beefcake got hit with parasailing, some parasailing accident or whatever the case was. And that's why he was wearing that mask. So Hogan, they say, I think, talking about him like, I guess he got hit with a parasailer, like dropped, I guess like a weight dropped or something, or whatever, something stupid like that. But Scott Steiner said that, Scott Steiner said the Macho Man had punched Hogan in the face, and of course that was one of the more popular theories, or ideas, and I definitely lean towards that direction more than anything, because the black eye was, of course Hogan's left eye was black, and Savage was right-handed, so you put two and two together, and I wouldn't be surprised at all whatsoever. So I believe that story. But yeah, like I said, and not only that, but also another thing I want to get into as well. Other than other than the sightseeing, other than the attractions, when it came to the wrestling side, I got a chance to go to to the WWE Superstore, fan access, and so I mean, like from aesthetics, it was incredible. But of course, WWE always finds a way to to really like step up the game when it comes to the Superstore, when it comes to aesthetics. The one drawback, and I'm going to get into more of this, late, even more later, is just the excessive price tags that this WrestleMania had. What I mean? So like it's just like everything's at a price tag, including fan access. Including fan access to Superstore. So so pretty much so really, in order to even shop, you had to pay for a ticket. So I was like, I'll bite the bullet and drop the $85, just for the sake of of being able to collect my own merchandise, like the shirt, two really cool hoodies. Matter of fact, ahead of time, I ordered a WrestleMania 41 shirt from the website. Well ahead of time, and I took that with me to Vegas as well. But outside of the outrageous price tag, but the thing is, the Superstore was definitely worth it. The WWE World experience was definitely worth it, especially when it came to the Triple H display, which was nice. The Shawn Michaels Heartbreak Hotel exhibit, I thought that was cool. What else do they have? I don't know what I'm saying. What else? But I know that like I said, I know they also had where you could create your own entrance. You could even have the 360 camera holding Cena's championship, and as a matter of fact, I even have the video. The video on my phone. It was texted to me, so so of course I'm gonna make sure to download that too. So as far as that, I definitely had fun. And so when I say merchandise was just mind blowing, I was like, I don't even know where to start. I was like, you know what? It got to the point where I was like really deciding, to the point where I was even asking some people. I was like, yeah, I was like, do you think this goes with this, that, and third? And so, so of course, thankfully, I made the right decisions. In terms of the hoodies that I got. I got my first WrestleMania zip up hoodie. And I got this really cool green WrestleMania 41 hoodie. WrestleMania 41 hoodie was got the designs. It has the designs of the cards and stuff like that. I thought it was pretty nice. In fact, I got it right here actually. I have one right here. Check this out. those that happen to be watching live, it's right here. Because the funny thing is, I saw a dude that was catching the same flight as me to Vegas, and I saw him wearing the same hoodie, and he was wearing a John Cena hat. And so I looked at, I was this really stood out. And so one of the ladies at the superstore told me that that particular hoodie had run out, and it was, and of course, this was, like not they had run around before, and eventually they end up restocking like that, like that morning or the day before. And so bottom line is, it was meant to be. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, it definitely was. You know what I mean? So as far as that, I definitely got over, the shirt. I got myself the Austin 316 shirt, his face covered in blood because of, because him and Brett's WrestleMania 13 match was the first match inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So I'm definitely, of course, I'm going to go into that as well. As far as that, like I say, as far as like my Superstore experience, like I said, it was great. And right after the Superstore, I head over to Allegiant Stadium for night one of WrestleMania. But another caveat I got to talk about is I feel as though they really need to do better with their time for the Hall of Fame, because that Hall of Fame was very long-winded to the point where the camera showed, people going to sleep. Booker T, Jey Uso, even with the sunglasses on. Bayley was definitely fighting for her life. Bianca was fighting for her life as far as not going to sleep. You know what I mean? And a lot of them, Jade Cargill as well. I could name just about everybody on that roster darn near. You know what I mean? It was just, it was just taking forever. I mean, Bret Hart is a senior citizen on the verge, like on the doorstep of 70, just about. So that he was already out of it. You know what I mean? And no shade to Bret, but that's the truth. The guy's 67, he's 68 pretty soon, so he's knocking on 70. And so you can definitely tell he's over. Stone Cold even calling out the WWE for the Hall of Fame time. You know what I mean? So I was like, it's bad anytime you're on talent, especially like Hall of Famers are calling it out for taking too long. And the thing about it is that, they were already tired. They're already worn out, because they had a SmackDown that took place at 4:00 on Friday. And so then, of course, it's about 2 hours and some change, right? And so after that, then they have to go back to the hotel, change, put on suits and dresses and stuff like that, put on the very best, like I said, for the sake of this Hall of Fame ceremony. And the time frame in these speeches are, they just dragging on and on and on. I'm like, come on now. Like I said, I know I'd be fighting for my life. I know if I were there, I would have on shades like Jay, just so nobody would see me, would catch me on camera with my eyes closed. I mean, that is unbearable. Excuse me. But of course, as far as the Hall of Fame, I'm glad that that Triple H was the headliner. I'm glad that he thanked China and gave her props and gave her flowers and roses, even though she's not here to smell them. But I'm glad that he showed appreciation to her. And what's even funnier was that Stephanie was right there in the front row. So Triple H was praising China in Stephanie's face. So I know that he was definitely sitting on the couch that night at the hotel. You know what I mean? Uh, so, but at the same time, it's just like you cannot erase China's imprint, what she means to wrestling, what she means, to women's empowerment and everything like that. China was one. She was certainly a pioneer, trailblazer. Had not been for China, you would not have Rhea Ripley's, Bianca Belair's, Jade Cargill's, uh, you know, Naya's, so on and so forth, right? So China was definitely a trailblazer in her own right. So that's something that you definitely cannot take away from. So Triple H is a two-time Hall of Famer, first with DX, and now rightfully so, for his own merit. So, of course, you had the uh, Stone Cold versus Bret Hart match that was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So like, see, and the thing is that, of course, CM Punk was the presenter. Well, first off, Shawn Michaels was Triple H's presenter for his Hall of Fame speech. You know what I mean? So I knew I called. I was like, "There's nobody else." If any, because I was thinking Stephanie would have been one of the choices, but more than likely, uh, she would rather be in the audience, right? But I mean, even before Stephanie, the one name that stuck out the most for me was Shawn Michaels. Tripp's BFF, and so of course, it was only fitting for HBK to be the presenter, and he did great. Um, and so CM Punk was the presenter for Austin versus Bret, WrestleMania 13. You know what I mean? And so, of course, Lex Luger went to the Hall of Fame, and DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, was his presenter. And so, of course, I think, no offense to her, but I think, I guess the unintentional comedy was, of course, Michelle McCool going to the Hall of Fame. The Undertaker, saying that because of her, the women's division, she made it thrive or whatever. I was like, okay. I guess he must be a stand-up comedian. I even made a good comment on Instagram. I said, apparently, I didn't know that the Taker was being a stand-up comedian that night. You know what I mean? Because, it's like you got Michelle goes to the Hall of Fame, but Mickey James is not, and China's not in there yet. But eventually China's going to be. But, I guess they ain't ready for the conversation, but here we are. Excuse me. So the natural disasters, earthquake and typhoon, went to the Hall of Fame as well. You had a posthumous Hall of Fame inductions for Kamala. Was it Ivan Koloff? I know that was the third induction as well. But yeah, but of course, as far as that, um, pretty much. I mean, like I said, it wasn't a bad Hall of Fame class. It's just the timing of, just the timing of it all. But also back to my fan access experience. Excuse me. Nothing something else. But anyway, like I said, back to my experience at fan access. Even though I didn't get a photo op, or an autograph from Stone Cold, I was there when he had, I was there when he had his fan access interview, right? I thought it was an amazing experience. Of course, I definitely recorded it. Shared on social media, took pictures, reels, whatever. To be in the presence of an icon like that, to hear him share his stories is amazing. I did like the belt display. So they had, and of course, there was a display of different, championship belts for all the different sports leagues, from NFL, NBA, MLB, you name it, right? And so, my bad. So as far as that, like I said, I thought that was pretty cool. I definitely took pictures of those Cowboys, those Cowboys and Lakers championship belts. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, of course, for when I knew that was not going to be dropping no 600, $700 for championship. No way. I'm cool with the three that I have right now in my collection. But of course, for those that are belt collectors more than I am, hey, hats off to you for that one. But I'm very, very selective in terms of what belts I want to get, right, and how much I'm willing to cough up for. Like I say, we listen and we don't judge. I'm just saying, but like I said, other than that, The merchandise was great. I wish I would have, one of the things I wish I would have gotten, at least, it's just like I was breaking, I didn't want to break my wallet more. Wasn't too bad, but it's just that um, I did like those Raider jerseys. I also like, those Las Vegas basketball jerseys. I thought those were great. But of course, I got a Shawn Michaels Funko. You know what I mean? I definitely need to get that. So as far as merchandise, I don't really have no complaints about it. But of course, now it's time to move on to the card itself. WrestleMania 41, Night 1. Night. As we speak, I have my eyes on another WrestleMania 41 hoodie. But it's Night 1 WrestleMania 40 card. Of course, this card features Jey Uso versus Gunther. It also features Jade Cargill versus Naomi. It also features Tiffany Stratton. Actually, no, let me go back. Of course, this card features the likes of Jey Uso versus Gunther, the New Day versus the War Raiders. You have Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton. You have Jay Cargill versus Naomi. Of course, you also have. Of course, you also had Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight. Of course, you also have the main event triple threat match, which was of course Roman Reigns. Of course, we had Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins, and also another match to add as well. Ray Phoenix versus El Grande Americano. So as far as that, like I said, as far as those matches were concerned, WrestleMania opened up with the World Heavyweight Championship match. So I think they did that in terms of card placing to really get the fans hyped up and excited. Just to really set them. I think what they've been doing is putting certain matches right in the front to set the tone for the rest of the night. Because I know last year at WrestleMania 40, I'm going to say it was night 1, night 2. They had I want to say it was night 2, I believe it was. They had Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch for the Women's World Championship, right? And so that was a great way to set the tone for what we would eventually see later down the card, for that WrestleMania. So I thought that was very strategic. Whereas it's like a match that is, sort of a Hall of Fame caliber. Is a match that kicks off the show because there's an even bigger Hall of Fame match later on in the card. So in this case, because you had Jey versus Gunther, for the World Heavyweight Championship, and so it's like naturally it could be a main event just because Jey won the Royal Rumble, but they've proven that it's not a guarantee that the Royal Rumble winner is going to be in a main event. So they were smart to kick off with Jey versus Gunther, which is a great match in itself. That's definitely one of those matches that eventually I'm going to end up rewatching anyway. So of course Jey won, and us at that stadium, we lost our minds. We went crazy. I mean, like I said, for Jey to finally win, that was incredible, especially with the surge of momentum that he's been having that we haven't seen since the likes of probably Kofi Mania, to be honest with you. And so so for him to beat someone who is of supreme caliber in the ring, someone the likes of Gunther, who's a ring general in every sense of the word, and just for Jey's momentum, it's just like it was like a fireball. There's no way it could be stopped. There's no way that they could get someone. Even though Cody lost, first, of course, Cody lost the first time at WrestleMania 39, even after winning the Royal Rumble. But just like when it comes to Jey, It's just like he's had even a longer story that the fans been have really been behind because of what he went through initially as as one of the founding uh, members of the Bloodline storyline. As one of the founding members of the Bloodline period, and so we got to see Jay's progress and his rise after being abused and after being abused and gaslit by Roman, as one of his top henchmen, um, to being in one of the best matches of Roman's title reign anyway. So as far as that, of course, eventually reunite with his brother, as part of the bloodline, becoming the longest reigning tag champs in WWE history, all the type of stuff like that, right? And so to see Jay make that climb to eventually not only not only step out of Roman's shadow, but jump out of Roman's shadow altogether and make his own name, and so as far as that, and just branched off on his own and have established his own identity outside of the legendary tag team with his own brother. And we eventually saw not only Jay turn away from Roman, especially because of his brother, but eventually we see Jimmy turn on him, which led to a match last year at WrestleMania 40, which was not their finest hour, not exactly the finest hour, the total opposite of Bret versus Owen match. But but even with that, Jay went on to continue to redeem himself. He became, and as a matter of fact, there was even a point where he was even a tag team champion with Cody Rhodes. Jay also became an Intercontinental champion, and so and so of course all this type of stuff just continues to add to his stature to the point where now he's living up to his name of being main event Jay. And so it's and to see him make that rise is definitely something that's absolutely remarkable. And so and of course, also I like how they really turned the heat up. They turned the heat up when it came to Jay's seriousness. You know what I mean? So eventually he became more than just he became more than just the Yeet Man, if you will. You know what I mean? So eventually they started making it more than just a catchphrase, because I remember that watching the Go Home episode of Raw, where he told Gunther that told Gunther that he was going to have to ask the Lord for forgiveness for what he was about to do to him, and especially after what Gunther did to Jimmy. So it's just like that's what really set things off. That's what really turned the switch, for Jay to become even more serious. And so like I said, to see this rise in stature, to eventually to the point, where he conquers, the ring general once for all, to become the world heavyweight champion was monumental in itself. So congratulations to him. And so next up, we also see New Day defeat the War Raiders to become the new World Tag Team Champions. I did like the New Day's gear. I'm not sure exactly what was inspired by, but it definitely looks amazing. So as far as that, then we have Jade Cargill versus Naomi. And the thing is, I was going for Jade, especially to to get a revenge on Naomi after what happened. And not only that, this is the finest work of Naomi's career. This heel turn, talking about proceed with caution. I was like, man, and like this story really got me invested. And I would say that this was definitely by far a better story. as far as like the women's match going to WrestleMania than with Charlotte and Tiff had ever been. And so like I said, it was great to see Jade win. There's still sort of holes in Jade's game, uh, that can still be improved and worked on, but it was definitely a great feel good moment, Jade's Mania moment, if you will. Of course, we also had the United States Championship match, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. I was going for Jacob with that one. Glad he won. Congratulations to the Samoan Werewolf. Or I like to call him the Samoan Sabretooth, if you will, because he reminds me of Sabretooth anyway. But like I said, of course, it was great to see Jacob Fatu win, become the new United States champion. We have Ray Phoenix versus Grande Americano. Spoiler alert, there's Chad Gable. So of course, the winner of that match of Grande Americano. Then we have, speaking of the women's championship match, Tiffany Time versus versus the Queen Charlotte Flair, and of course, as we got closer to the road to WrestleMania, we could definitely see the mudslinging between Tiff and Charlotte. It just really get personal, especially when it came to their personal lives, as far as Charlotte's divorces and Charlotte saying that Kaiser was in her DMs and things like that. Just really kind of started getting messy. But at the same time, Charlotte has a reputation of going off the script. Going off script. So I think that's what it's what Tiffany clapped back the way that she did. So it's just like it's like now you want to start really diving deep into that. But it's just like there wasn't really too much to lean on when it came to that. And so this showed that Tiffany was really out of her element. Charlotte was definitely being a professional. And so even though I wanted her to win, but it's just like in the end, it might be best that she didn't win, just so that she could help elevate Tiffany. Man, poor thing this guy KO. But anyway, like I said, more so the elevation tool for Tiffany. And so now Tiffany's got to prove that she can hang on her own outside of Charlotte. So actually, winner of that match, Tiffany Stratton, and the best match of night one, the match that carried night one more than anything, was a triple threat match with CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. First of all, congratulations to CM Punk for finally making the main event of WrestleMania. So this is Punk's first main event, and this is Roman Reigns' 10th WrestleMania main event. So of course, nobody does it better when it comes to headlining WrestleMania than the Tribal Chief himself. And so, and of course, I did like how CM Punk came to the ring, not only with Paul Heyman, but especially with Living Color performing for him. And so I was like, man, and not only that, but Heyman even kissed Punk on the forehead. So that was a foreshadowing of what would happen. It's kind of like the kiss of death, if you will. And just what happened the day before Easter, Resurrection Sunday. We all know what happened with that. Of course, Judas with the infamous kiss of death. I'm like, okay, I see what WWE's doing. So, of course, Public Enemies, they even made a meme about that. So I'm like, perfect timing right there. But other than that, like I said, the match was amazing. From the action to the story leading up to it, and so I just had a feeling that Seth, that Heyman was definitely going to make it a double turn, and he did more ways than one. And I also liked the tribute to the Anwani family as Roman made his entrance. So of course, his entrance video showed his family lineage, his family history. I thought that was great. Of course, Seth being Seth, being the visionary, revolutionary, just being the agent of chaos that he is. And so like I said, it was a three-way story. Of course, more so Seth versus Punk, as well as Seth versus Roman. The dramatics in this match were just everything. And of course, I like how Paul Heyman was, I like how conflicted this dude was. And so fast forward, Heyman slides a chair to CM Punk, right? Um, only to hit him with a low blow. And then he hands the chair over to Roman Reigns, his tribal chief. Um, and so as Roman is going for the chair shot, going for the kill, Heyman hits him with a low blow. And then, of course, which last but not least, smoothly hands the chair off to Seth Rollins, and Rollins doing what he does best. Of course, back to memory lane, nails Roman with a chair, followed by a curb stomp. 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? The winner of that match, Seth freaking Rollins. And so I was like, yeah, like I said, there's definitely a thrilling main event. So Seth Rollins is now your new Paul Heyman guy, and that really sent shockwaves, all across the wrestling community, the IWC, name. And see the comments. Yeah, so of course, like I said, it was absolutely amazing. And so, and of course, I want to give a shout out to my man Alexander Devon, who of a Smart Psychology podcast. Of course, I got a chance to run to him that same night, right? Right during you should be like of course, right in the middle of the main event itself. Of the triple threat main event, and it was just like, of course, when Heyman finally and tear off the Rollins, it was just lost our collective minds, if you will. I was like, man, and of course, it happened. So Seth Rollins, is officially the new Paul Heyman guy, and I figured that was going to happen because of the fact that because Heyman, because obviously Heyman's not loyal, but also he's already had Punk and Reigns as Heyman guys as themselves, and so he's already kind of like ran his course and did everything he needed to do with them, in order to elevate their status, right? And so I was like, all right, great. And so moving on to the next night, of course, I'm going to wrap this up. Night 2. So night 2 of night two of WrestleMania 41 kicks off with the women's World Championship triple threat match. Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. Outstanding match. It was a great way to kick off Mania and really set the tone for what lied ahead. And so of course the winner of that match, the Genius of the Sky, Io. And so I was like, and of course Bianca's streak was over, but I did like Bianca's entrance where she came out with her stepdaughter, and and just continuously be an inspiration. Just be an inspiration for girls everywhere. So like she's definitely a female Cena, but it's just unfortunate how she's being received as far as being booed and everything. I thought that wasn't right. I think that's foul. But it's neither here nor there. But like I said, that match was absolutely brilliant. I would say that's the best match of night 2. Next up, we have the Sin City Street Fight match. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. The winner of that match, the winner of that match was Drew. So as far as that, we also have AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. The winner of that match is surprisingly Logan Paul. We also have, and of course, not only that, not only that, but of course, Randy Orton has an open challenge, and his surprise opponent ends up being Joe Hendry, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Very nice surprise. Of course, the winner of that match being Viper himself. I did like like the Randy Orton, you know, the Randy Orton career video package going to something like things like his 20th WrestleMania, I believe. And so, you know, so of course it was great for Orton to sell the open challenge just because Kevin Owens had gotten injured. And so you know, it was definitely a great plan B to have Joe Hendry out there. And of course, only for the Viper to end up with RKO. And of course, Randy Orton showed how much control he can be. Where he does Hendry's entrance goes up, you know, Hendry's taunt, we goes up like this, gets the crowd going, turns around, looks at the camera, and it does like this. You know, I was like, I thought that was pretty cool. But you know, like I said, as far as that was nice. We also had. Excuse me. We also have, also have the women's tag team championship match where Liv and Raquel defend the titles against Lyra Valkyria and a mystery opponent. Bayley was taken out, and so Bayley's substitute ends up being a returning Becky Lynch. And your winners, and for a brief moment, the new women's tag team champions, even if it was just for 24 hours, Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch, only to turn around the next night, spoiler alert, and lose them back to Liv and Raquel, only to set up Becky's heel turn. All right, whatever. So it's just like, like what was the point of them even in the first place? If that was going to happen, that's neither here, but whatever, neither here nor there. Of course, I'm not missing any other matches, but especially the main event itself. Finally, we see John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, for the WWE Championship. And so the match stays in first gear. Doesn't really kick off into anything super exciting. Not that many interferences. Certainly not near as many, not close as many as those Roman matches from 39 to 40. You know what I mean? And so so it was like very slow pace. I thought The Rock was going to come out. Unfortunately, he didn't. A lot of people pissed off about that. Only for Travis Scott to come out. That was the only interference. So of course, Cody got his payback and hit only hit Travis at the Crossroads, and it was no like super climactic, finish, whatever. Everything was anticlimactic as far as that John Cena beating Cody with the low blow and knocking him out with the belt. You know what I mean? And so John was definitely, he was definitely taking his time. Pulled a few tricks out of the hat, but he was making sure that he was definitely playing it up, feeling great, old schoolish. Like I said, not really, he really taking much time as he wanted to, and so. But the main thing was for John Cena to become a 17-time world champion. So congratulations to him for becoming the official record holder. As far as the titles are recognized. So he broke Ric Flair's record of 16 titles. He's a 17-time world champion. I know there are people, were debating about it, bringing up, Flair being a 21-time champion, but there's several reigns, that aren't officially acknowledged or recognized as canon. So like there's stuff that were done like house shows or that weren't going to be recognized on TV, right? Those type of things. And so of course, anything WWE history, and it really just general canon lore. We're going to recognize Flair's 16-time world champion. So I'm going off of that. And so I know there are people that that wonder what's the hype about about Cena's win as far as like breaking record. But as I've said to other people before, I'll say it like this: there was just as much hype about Flair being a 16-time champion as there is about Cena being a 17-time champion, because of the fact that he's broke a record. And so there are people who want to know why there's not as much hype as far as someone being the longest reigning champion. So in Roman's case, he's the longest reigning champion of of like the modern era, post 80s, if you will, right? Um, but the thing about it is that Roman was nowhere near close to um, breaking Bruno's record, right? And so, in order to do that, he would have had to put in another 4 years, and I don't think he wanted to do that. And that's why he scaled back his schedule. You know, so so like I said, Roman wasn't even really within an arm's reach like that um, of breaking Bruno's record. Right. Meanwhile, Cena was on the doorstep of Flair's record being tied, and so since it's Cena's farewell of WrestleMania in Las Vegas, what better way, what better night um, to break the record than that? What better environment to break the record than that? So I thought it was very, very fitting and very poetic. Even though he's a heel, but still, history was made. Congratulations, John Cena, for becoming a 17-time world champion. And I'm good with that, especially because Cena has a far better perception right now than what Ric Flair has. So like I said, I'm not mad at it at all whatsoever. And also for bragging rights, because WWE can officially say that say the longest reigning champion is a star that they created. So as far as that, and thank you for those that are watching by way of X, and of course those that are watching by way of Facebook, by way of YouTube, youtube.com// Von Westman Jr. And so of course, like a few other things I want to say before I head out is that if I had to give this a rating, I give it about 8 out of 10. It's between 7.5 to about 8 out of 10. About 8 out of 10 John Cena WWE Championship belts. So I would say, that that the environment is really what what added even more points, especially with it being in Vegas, the type of thing. So so as far as that, I said it was definitely pretty strong pay-per-view, but at the same time, I would say, or PLE if you will, but I would say that it was not worth what these ticket prices were. So I think that WWE outpriced themselves when it came to selling this event. Like I said, it was definitely more than a passable WrestleMania, by far better than 9. But at the same time, was not worth what they were selling it for. Because these prices were just outright egregious. And shout out to DDM from Black Wrestling because he echoed my same sentiments. And I've had this conversation 4 different times over WrestleMania weekend about the fact that the fact that since WWE is going in this direction, this direction with this TKO thing, like making it feel more like a UFC type of event. Even with this partnership, is running the risk of outpricing the loyal fan base. The celebrities, A-listers and stuff, they're not the ones, and the ones that are jumping back in because it's cool. They're not the ones that are keeping this company going strong and moving forward. It's the regular, loyal fan base that pay their hard-earned money, for events, for merchandise. They're the ones that are the reason why this company is in a better position. And so with this TKO deal, I feel like WWE's way of smelling themselves, feeling themselves, and and it's just like these prices were just outrageous. And so I'm going to say this: I need to get this off my chest vocally. And I've said this in numerous conversations. I don't excuse this guy's behavior. Even though his behavior has been outright egregious, I mean, look no further than, the documentary and, these court files and all these documents that have been put out. I don't excuse this guy's behavior, but it's, like I said, as far as like outside of wrestling, I'm not condoning or defending him whatsoever. But one thing's for sure, Vince McMahon would not have overpriced these tickets. He would not have outpriced these fans. And when you outprice them, you turn them away. Vince's main objective as a businessman, as owner, was to make sure that that these events were affordable for families. We want to make sure that WWE at the end of the day was family oriented. Make sure that these events were affordable for for the whole family. Especially when it comes to the kids. Because they're ultimately going to be going to be the biggest market that he's going to cater to. And so, so the thing is, like, you want to make sure it's affordable for people to come to on their own. Like affordable. For people to take out on a date. Or, like, affordable. For parents to bring their kids to and things like that. Vince want to make sure that that the everyday person was able to have this type of experience. Where, I mean, of course, there's always been celebrities, but at the same time, it was still, you still made sure that it was in a respectable price range. Now, over time, prices have gone up that's just because of the change of times, changing the economy as time goes on. Things are going to inflate, but it was still within a reasonable boundary as far as pricing is concerned. When these prices came out, especially after officially being under the TKO umbrella with this WrestleMania, it was just outrageous. It got to the point where I saw a video where somebody, I guess, where there was a fan, were taking a picture with Randy Orton, I guess in a lobby somewhere, whatever, having a conversation, and they told him how much they paid for the tickets. And Randy Orton himself was like, "That's embarrassing." So y'all in the red zone. Anytime your own talent, regardless of who it is, but especially someone of Randy Orton's caliber, is saying that y'all are out here embarrassing these people with these prices. And I've heard the numbers, and they're like horror stories. And so it's just like, I'm not feeling that direction. I feel like that they're playing in our faces with these prices. Like I said, I'm not being a Vince defender whatsoever, but at the same time, I will give him his props. You know what I mean? Like, as far as being a businessman, he still made sure that, events, even WrestleMania, were still at least within a respectable price range. These things right here, no way at all. It was a miracle that I even got the tickets that I got to even get to the building in the first place. But yeah, and I firmly believe that if Vince were still in charge, I firmly believe that eventually WrestleMania would have gotten back to Las Vegas. But I don't think that the prices would be as crazy as they've been. I think even Vegas outpriced themselves, right? And not only that, but also with this Fanatics deal, with this deal with Fanatics, even the fans experience, the Superstore stuff, even has a price tag to it, and so, it's just like this stuff is getting outrageous, and I know there are people who are on the last leg, and they're like, after this, even probably after New Orleans, there are people I know that pretty much going to call it a career, and probably just stop going to WrestleMania for a while, because this stuff don't make no sense. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on now, like, and just some of the, it's just like, it was like, even some of the stuff that they're saying, some of these wrestlers themselves are coming out with these interviews and stuff like that, and these celebrity roasts and these all this other type of stuff. They just get abrasive. It's just like they're showing their full hand, like they're telling everybody about themselves. You know what I mean? I was like, it's just like something about this climate. I don't know if it's because it's in Vegas or whatever the case is. It's just like they're not reading the room. You know what I mean? And it just goes to show that there's zero, especially when it comes to the pricing. It goes to show that there's zero empathy or whatsoever about about the conditions that these people are in. You know what I mean? Especially with this economy and everything like that. Like, come on now. And it's just like, and the thing is, I kind of want to shut, especially with this Vanity Fair interview about Roman. I really want to kind of like put it on mute, kind of block it out, if you will, and wait until afterwards. But I will say this. Let me say it like this. A lot of these people, the interests that they vote for usually have to deal with the bottom line, if you will. This. And so people have, their own ideologies and stuff, ideals and things like that. So I'm not looking for, for wrestlers or athletes to be, to be some social commentators, to be, like, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, Barack Obama, or anything like that. I'm not asking you to be no political expert or whatever, if you will. Like I said, the thing is, of course, like people have their own belief systems and things like that. I will say this though. All I know is, if I am a public figure, multimillionaire and stuff like that, especially, I would say like this. If I'm someone with who's dealing with leukemia, for example, me personally, I'm not enforcing my will on anybody. But all I know is that if I was dealing with a disease like that, I would not support someone who wants to eliminate funding for cancer research. That's just my thing, And so I think, that wasn't really the best look, especially for someone like Roman, who's has been known to have himself protected. In terms of certain interviews, all I gotta say is I'm pretty sure under Vince's watch, interviews like that would not be taking place. So I think that's why guys like CM Punk and Seth Rollins had to do, PR damage control pretty much. But like I said, it's just just a sign of the times that WWE's in. So it's just like, and then The Rock bailing out at the last minute. Don't even get me started on that. But other than that, like I said, like I enjoyed my WrestleMania experience in terms of Las Vegas environment. What I mean? Like I said, it just, like, Vegas was just a huge part. Like I said, WrestleMania. Like I said, it was what it was. Will I say that it was probably a better card than 40? Not quite, but it's still better than like 33 through 36, if you will. But yeah, like I said, as far as that, those are my thoughts on it. So, and of course, now it's time for me to get into the birthdays. I definitely have to get a lot off my chest. So, as far like I said, so as far as our recent birthdays, like I said, of course, on April 16th, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar turned 78. April 17th, of course, April 16th, Martin Lawrence turned 60. April 17th, Roddy Piper would have turned 71. Of course, on April 20th, Luther Vandross would have turned 74. April 22nd, Jack Nicholson turns 88. Of course, on the same day, Kathy Hughes turns 77. And of course, April 23rd, John Cena turns 48. Of course, Barbra Streisand turns 83. April 25th, Al Pacino turns 85. Tim Duncan, of course, Tim Duncan turns 49. Giancarlo Esposito turns 67. April, of course, on April 27th, Iceman George Gervin turns 73. And of course, on April 29th, Michelle Pfeiffer turns 67. Of course, Holly Moore's Fox 5 turns 54. Or April 30th, Isaiah Thomas turns 64. And so those are the birthdays for this week. And before I go, I would like to give a word of wisdom. Is that since Jesus have been resurrected, um, he can resurrect your situation. You know what I mean? It's because he lives, you can live also. Because he rose, of course, you have a chance to rise and have a new life as well. So that's my word of wisdom. And of course, you're victorious because greater is he does anything he does in the world. We put God in first place. You don't have to worry about being in last place. And of course, thank you very much for watching the show, watching this podcast on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening by way of iTunes and Spotify and Google Podcasts. Of course, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. And also remember, may this day be the very best day of your life. Thank you very much.